All right, cool. So let's get right into charts. I'm going to give you guys the analysis and the breakdown of the trade that we took today, which was these gold sells here. We took 3 trades today. So one of them hit stop loss, which was this set over here, which I'm going to explain. We took a re-entry, which did good as well. Did over 100 plus pips over a 1 of 4.6 risk to reward. And then we managed to re-enter one more time, which was the last trade that we took today that did play out for a 1 of 7.3 risk to reward. This one over here did run over 260 pips, which was a beautiful trade, a beautiful re-entry. So I'm going to give you guys the top-down analysis, the breakdown, explain to you guys this entire setup and why did we actually took this setup. So we're going back here to the Telegram. I'm going to start off with the first trade that we took today. The first trade was taken at 10:23 in the morning, right? This was obviously me just telling you guys good morning. This is what we're going to be looking at 10:20 was the time that I got my entry, and I'm going to explain to you guys the levels that I had marked up. So if we go here with gold, if we look at gold from the all-time higher time frame, right, we can see that obviously gold has been pushing for a very long time. We actually have been making new all-time highs the past couple of weeks, right? So if we go here on the weekly time frame, we can see that gold has been very bullish the start of or the ending of August, right? So we've been bullish for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. We have been completely bullish with gold, right? Just price action, creating nice higher highs and higher lows, and just continue pushing towards the upside. If we go in today's market, all I simply did today was simply just mark up the new highs, which is going to be this one's over here, which is going to be set around the 37.88, and the time that I started trading, the time that I got into the market was just technically ranges from this point over here to this point over here, which was 33 or 37.88, and the other lows here was at 37.80, right? So we can say that price session was kind of ranging around like an 80 pip ranges, during the New York session open. Now, if we take a little bit look lower towards these time frames over here, this was all during the London session. So we can start off from Tuesday. That happened, this was this morning on Tuesday. So we have the London session highs right over here, and then we also have the London session lows over here. So obviously, if we kind of mark up the levels from this point here to this point over here, we can see that price action at the beginning of the London session, during the Asian session, price action was just simply ranging from one point towards another point, right? So you guys can clearly see how it was respecting these highs over here. We were respecting, and price action was kind of doing the similar exact setup. Now, we don't really like to sell the market whenever price action is doing something like this, or buy the markets, right? Just because price session is having a nice formation towards the upside, there's no clear setup for us to even buy the markets over here or sell the market just because we're coming over here these highs. We can look at the left side. This over here will always be context clues, right? Our left side will always be context clue with the markets. Now, if we take a look at the market, what price session was doing over here, it was very similar to what it was doing during the London session. During the New York session, the early New York session open, price session was just simply ranging from one zone to another zone. So again, the zone that we had marked up was 37.88, and the other zone that we had marked up was at 37.80, right? So just from one zone to another zone. We go back here during the London session. London session did the same exact thing. Ranges from one zone to another zone. But look at the left side. The left side, we had a type of resistance. This was the all-time highs, which price action rejected it. For us to sell the market, whenever we're ranging, all we're simply waiting for is for price action to have a break of structure, either towards the downside or either towards the upside. That is the simple way that we're going to enter a market condition. Very simple. Now, if we look at today's market condition, we did the same exact thing. We were ranging until we finally got the break towards the downside. So this morning, like I said, the only zone that I had marked up was 37.88 and then 37.80, right? Now, let me clear this up so I can show you guys a little bit more of another detail of another plan that I had marked up, or to give you guys an overall review with the market condition, right? Because overall, yes, with gold, we are still very much bullish, right? So we go back here into the 4-hour time frame, we're still creating 4-hour bullish structure, obviously higher highs and higher lows. We go back here to the 1-hour time frame, we're still building up bullish structure, higher highs and higher lows. Now, these zones over here, which was the London session highs and as well with the Asian session high, is going to be an area of resistance, right? And it's going to be zones of resistance, which price session had a breakout. So to confirm trends, obviously price action needs to break out of a previous highs and needs to come back and retest it, right? That's the main idea whenever we're going to continue a trend. So very simple. If you guys look at the market condition, all we simply created was these lows, these new highs, and now price action is coming back to retest all of these entire broken structure. This was an area of resistance and an area of resistance, which price action right now is currently holding as an area of support. So this is going to be the overall picture. We're still bullish with the market until price action starts having a shift of structure towards the downside and breaking underneath all of these entire lows. As of right now, we're still very much bullish. But that's going to be the overall review. But if we go back here to the lower time frame, like I was telling you guys, all I had marked up was those two zones, and all I simply waited for was for a simple breakout. So today's trade was very simple. It's just simply waiting for breakout and break and retest towards the entire zones. So let's explain the first trade. The first trade I had marked up, all I simply was waiting for was for price action to simply break out of this entire bullish or this entire area of support, which is going to be around the 37.80, right? So in here in the Telegram, I told everyone, hey, no setup yet. This was at 10:14. Again, the market was just ranging for a very long time until we finally got the breakout. But take a look at this wick. This wick over here did manage to respect this entire fair value gap right over here. So price action did manage to reject off this bullish fair value gap, which obviously you did see a bounce. We did see a rejection, which was around the 37.75 zone. Price action had an extremely push towards the upside. But still, there was no confirmation for us to even enter a buy position. We just reacted off one structure. So this structure over here rejected it twice. We came back towards these zones. What do we see? Another bullish reaction, showing us that buyers were holding this level strong, but again, we were rejecting off the major highs, which the major highs here is going to be around the 37.88. So we have the first attempt to break above, which price action failed. We have the second attempt, the third attempt, fourth, and fifth attempt. So we have 5 attempts towards these entire highs, which price action was just simply ranging. So at this point over here, since we're ranging from one point to another point, the basic logic here is just simply wait for a breakout. Wait for price action to either break towards the upside or break towards the downside. And that's exactly where we'll be looking for these type of setups, right? So going back here into the markets, this was something that I had a concern, which was around the 37.75, fair value gap right over here, bullish fair value gap, and as well a demand zone. Notice how price action was just simply respecting it, having a bounce, another bounce towards the upside. Now, the thing that I started liking here was that price action was still closing underneath these entire zones, which is showing us, hey, bears and bulls, like bullish and bearish, right? The buyers or sellers are kind of fighting with each other. At this point over here is going to tell us what exactly is going to happen. Is this over here a fake out, showing us that price action is just having, an accumulation and manipulation and then a distribution, or is price action actually going to respect this entire support, right? So those were the two simple mindset that I had in this morning, and they're the two things that I had in mind this morning. So again, we had this one. All I simply waited for was, okay, if price action is rejecting off these zones, but we're still trading around these levels over here, the best bet is for us to inverse this entire fair value gap. And that's exactly what price action did over here. This was a bullish fair value gap. Notice what happened over here. Price action inversed it, meaning that price action did not respect that fair value gap and inversed it, showing us that sellers are now stepping into the markets. Very simple. All I did here was simply place my sell stop right underneath these entire low wicks over here, which we did see some type of bearish reaction, but then notice exactly the zone that price action had a bullish reaction from, which was around the 37.67 or 37.68 zone, which is going to be these zones over here. So at this point, whenever price action respected and started having a bounce towards the upside, notice the zones that we bounced off from, right? We bounced off from this exact zone. So if we go down to our lower time frame, which is going to be a 1 minute, we can see that it's a minor demand zone. We also respected this entire higher time frame VWAP, showing us that buyers are still holding around these levels over here. So going back into the 5-minute time frame, we respected this entire demand zone from a lower time frame. Price action respected this VWAP. This is where price action now started having a retracement towards the upside. But keep this in mind, we broke underneath these exact zones. So we have these lows over here, these other lows over here, these other lows over here. Price action broke out of these entire lows, now forming a new lower low. Cool. And now we also broke underneath these entire structure. So the first sell attempt was simply because price action, we were respecting this entire zone, and we finally inversed this gap right over here. So that was the reason why we took the first trade, which was actually worth it, right? The risk to reward was right there. Now, obviously, everything with trading is always going to be probabilities, right? The risk to reward was there. I did place my stop loss above these entire 15-minute highs right over here, which was around 70 points. And then our take profit was going to be all the way back down towards these lows over here, which was somewhere going to be around 200 points, which in total would have given us a 1-3 risk to reward. Now, the only thing, again, that messed us up was, one, we were trading against the trend because the higher time frame still continues being bullish. And the second thing was that price action did manage to reject off this minor structure. That was the reason why we end up taking this L. Now, notice what happened over here. Price action starts having a retracement, a very simple retracement. We broke out of this entire structure. Price action is now having a retracement. What do we notice? What do we have over here? We have all previous highs. So this was the last high point that price action made. Right, so this is all-time highs. This was the last point that price action made, and after that, notice what happens. We create the new lower low. Price action comes back, retests this entire broken structure. We go down towards a 1 minute time frame. What do we have here on a 1 minute time frame? We have all of this entire fair value gap on the lower time frame. So if you guys go back here on the 1 minute time frame, we have this bearish fair value gap, which is also known as an area of supply, which notice how price action came back, swept this entire high, which was our second limit, which was at 37.82. The first sell that we took was at 37.80 once price action reacted off this structure. We had a sell limit placed around this supply zone over here, which was at 37.82. Price action hit take profit 1. We reversed back into our second limit, which was at 37.82. Price action activates our sell limit, and then price action starts having that retracement towards the downside, which ended up playing out very, very nice. So this trade over here, the first attempt, it did play out for a 1 of 4.6 risk to reward. This setup over here on this account, I'm gonna show you guys right now, I made $960. So it was $960 from this trade over here. The second trade that I lost, I did lose over $800. So I recovered back the losses from the last trade, and then it closed out with some profit, which in profit I was up like 100, like almost $80 in profit, right? I went out of that negative from the day. So this one was played out very nice. Now notice the zone that price action has another rejection of. We have another reaction and rejection of this exact demand zone. So this 1 minute time frame demand zone over here, right? Respected it. Price action had a bounce. We respected this entire structure over here, and price action starts having another push towards the downside. We respected these entire demand zone. Cool. Now at this point over here, this is where obviously price action starts having another retracement towards back the upside. Now at this point over here is showing us that buyers are still holding these entire demand zone right over here. You see this? So all of this demand zone over here, this is exactly where price action is having a, is failing to continue to sell towards the downside. So we're having a bounce from here and another bounce from here. Cool. Now at this point over here, once price action starts having another retracement towards the upside, and we notice that price action finally breaks out of it, but continues to reject off these entire supply zone over here, is still showing us that sellers are still interested in taking the market down, right? So just because price action is just having a bounces over here, our main areas of interest of the day is always going to be this entire structure. We're never going to be switching the main areas of interest, right? So that means that if price action keeps coming back towards these zones and keeps having the same exact rejection, we're going to continue taking the sell or the buy over and over again till it finally fails, right? Now what I mean by that, if we go back here into the Telegram, this was the first trade. Again, setup failed, negative 1%. We have the second trade. You guys can see the limit, how it perfectly activated our limit. This one played out for 160 pips. And then this is where I told all of you guys, hey, I'm in again. This was at 37.82. Set limit again, it stopped at a break even. I'll try over it and over till it fails, right? So this was the second re-entry, which did very, very nice. Or this was the second entry that did very nice, which we did end up hitting over 160 pips, which was over a 1 of 4.6 risk to reward. Price action comes back. We sweep all of these entire highs over here from the New York session, and we continue to respect these entire supply zone over here, which is still showing us, again, that sellers are still trying to take control of the markets. So we reacted off this entire support, which turned into resistance. Price action broke back above it. We respected all of this entire resistance zone after rejecting off these supply zones. So this supply zone over here left the market, like let's say, again, supply zone is going to be the areas where price action or sellers are taking sell to the market. So let's say that 80% of the markets or the traders started selling the market, filling up all of these entire orders. So let's say 80% of traders started filling up this entire market. Price action starts having a retracement, come back to retest the major supply zone. This is where the 20% of the leftover of the seller starts taking over the market. So all I simply waited for was for price action to break out of these entire highs and respect this entire supply zone. Now, if this 5-minute candle over here, the second one, would have closed in above, then our sell areas of interest will no longer be valid. So as soon as price action closed underneath, this is exactly where I told you guys, hey, I'm going to re-enter the market one more time. This was at 1:15. This is where I told you guys I'm going to re-enter the market again. At some time, we did end up hitting take profit once the TP1 was hit, and then TP2 was hit another like 30 minutes later. We end up hitting take profit 2. An hour later, we end up running for 250 pips, which was 100 or 107 risk to reward. So we respected it. We were cool. Trade was risk free. At this point over here, we were just letting the market do its thing. Perfectly, whenever this was like around 3 o'clock, price action finally broke out of this entire minor ranges over here. We broke out of the entire minor ranges and then noticed the entire push that we finally got, which was beautiful. A 107.3 risk to reward, which was over 250 pips. And then we perfectly hit our target. Now, our main target obviously was going to be a little bit lower. Honestly, I was going to hold it a little bit lower, but the profit that was up already in this trade, I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to take the profits over here. We were honestly going to target back down over here, which would have been somewhere between 320 pips, almost a 109 risk to reward. but I was already loving the profit. The profit was good. The areas of interest, the exit point was on point as well. Perfect. We take our money. No emotion at all. But notice exactly what it did, right? We go back into the 4-hour time frame. The trend continues still being valid with this bullish, right? Obviously, we just came back to retest all of this entire broken structure. Now, it really depends till tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to have to see what the market does around these exact zones. Let's see during the Asian session if price action just ranges between these zones over here, or we start actually breaking even lower, right? But at this point, we're done with the market. There's not really much to do. All I did today was simply just wait for a proper breakout. So the breakout was over here. We got the retest, the breaking retest. We got stopped out of break even, came back towards the same zone, reject that supply zone, and just sell underneath the market. Perfect. Those were the 3 simple setup that we took today, which the result was amazing. So if we look here at one of the big accounts that I have, you guys can see the losses and you guys can also see the wins. So let me show you guys. So this over here, or let me just make sure that you guys are seeing it. So let's go back to the OBS. So this is the profit. You guys can see that. And then of course, oh, my bad. You already know. Everything we do here, it is live. So this is one of the big accounts that I manage as of right now. You guys can see the profit and you guys can also see the losses. Cool. So that was a trade that we took today. Very simple. Only thing that I focused on today was simply just the breakout. Focus on the supply zone over here, which was the area where price action started having the first retracement, right? So the first retracement, we had the breakout, we had the push, and this over here was the initial supply zone where sellers started stepping into the market. This over here was just, again, the retest of this broken structure. That support turned into resistance. We came back, respected this demand. Price action pushed back towards the upside. Respected that supply. All we simply waited for was for a closure underneath the supply zone, which was this bearish candle right over here. We took the entry all over again, and then price action perfectly fell, hitting our final TP for a 107.6 risk to reward. And as well, notice how we're respecting all of these entire highs, where price action is now having a bullish bounce towards the upside. So this one over here, we're done with the markets. Not really much to go over, but that was pretty much it, guys, to set up the analysis of what we took today. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to be obviously sending you guys more breakdown, more recap, and I'm going to be sending you guys the chart analysis so you guys understand exactly what we're looking for. But this was the setup of the day. Very beautiful. We made over a 107-point risk to reward, a 104-point risk to reward. And if we go back here to yesterday's trade was beautiful as well, which also played out for a 103 risk to reward. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this